Okay, so before this video starts, I would first like to shout out and thank all of my Patreon supporters. Thank you very much. Your continued support means a lot to me, and it encouraged me to continue to push out these videos, despite the fact that my life is very, very busy, very, very hectic. So if you guys would like to support me, if there's anyone out there that would, all my links are in my description. PayPal, Patreon, HTLT subs and GregDoucette.com affiliate links, TikTok, Instagram, all of that will be in my description. Go check me out and follow me on whatever, give me money and do whatever needs to be done. But, hello everybody, I am not dead yet, and today I am talking about Lance Tosi, aka the Modern Warrior on TikTok. And the Modern Warrior on TikTok is known by combating racism with more racism. Yeah, he calls out things that he deems racist, sexist, misogynistic, whatever, and his catchphrase is, "Hey, colonizer." Yeah, he uses racial slurs in an attempt to call out racism and combat racism. Doesn't make much sense to me either, but if you are one of those people that is going to come at me saying, "Oh, you can't be racist to white people because racism is prejudice plus power, and colonizer is not a racial slur," let me just bring up the definition of racism real quick. And racism is prejudice against a person or a group of individuals based off of race. That goes both ways. If you are prejudiced against somebody based off of their race, you are a racist, or that is a racist act. And in terms of racial slurs, are an insult or derogatory remark said towards someone on the basis of their race. I do not really understand how calling white people colonizers would not qualify as a racial slur. Same thing with cracker, if you're calling it to insult calling people that to insult them. So yeah. Also, I've heard people say that it's colonizer is a mindset and it's not a racial slur. However, I saw a TikTok of somebody else calling out Lance for only really using the "hey colonizer" thing to white people. He doesn't really do it to quote-unquote people of color. So yeah, I'll throw that TikTok in the description as well. Go check it out. A lot of people seem to be lambasting Modern Warrior, or as he's more commonly known in these criticism circles, the Modern Racist. And I tend to agree that Lance is the perfect example of racism in modern society. Because, like, when Trump got elected in 2016, I started seeing a lot of people commenting about the rise of white supremacy and the rise of fascism in the United States, and I do actually agree with that. I do agree that there is a rise of racism and fascism, even if you want to go so far, in the United States. However, I do not believe it to be the exact same way that other people seem to be saying it, because the techniques and strategies used by Lance are the exact same ones that were used in by the Nazis, the actual Nazis, in the 1950s during their rise to power in World War II. Because a lot of people seem to forget that at the start of the war, the Germans were actually in the right. They were justified in their anger. They were actually the oppressed group. They were crushed under the boots of France and England, with their economy completely crashed, with their attempts to pay off the insane amount of debt that was placed on them after they took the fall for World War I. Remember, history is written by the winners, and so because the English and the French won the First World War, they placed almost all of the blame on Germany for starting the war, and so Germany had to take the brunt of that. They were demilitarized, they were put down as a people, and their economy was destroyed due to inflation. You needed literal wheelbarrows of money in order to buy a loaf of bread. And it was that specific instance, that specific time of civil unrest and demoralization that allowed Hitler to rise to power. What he did was he took the desire to feel strong and powerful again and the pride of the people and used that frustration and that oppression to gain power and justify atrocities. Because racism, we often talk about, you know, Hitler was a monster and all these horrible people throughout history were monsters. They were not monsters, they were men. They were human. And every single one of us has the capacity to do amazing things, but we also have the capacity to do the absolute worst things. And so a lot of people seem to forget that Hitler got to where he was because of the support of the German people. And the strategies used by Hitler are very similar to the ones that are used by Lance. And the biggest example I can give is stereotyping an entire race or group of people as the privileged ones, as the conquerors and as the winners, because that is what happened to the Jewish. A lot of people, again, I say seem to forget, but I wasn't born during that time. I wasn't alive during that time, so maybe they just didn't learn it or just didn't pay attention in history class. But the Jews back in World War II era were seen very similarly, and a lot of things were said about them that are very similar to what people say about white people today. How many times have we heard someone say, oh, white privilege, or eat the rich? Phrases akin to gas the Jews, not specifically, they weren't actually saying that, but phrases with that sort of sentiment were just as prevalent in 1950s Germany as saying something like eat the rich is today. Because what happened was the German population, and really the population of the world at large, was struggling through various economic depressions, and they wanted to, focused their frustration on the wealthy, on the rich and wealthy, and the rich and wealthy just so happen to be the Jewish. And so when you have a lot of people in a certain ethnic group that are doing very well, it stops being attack the rich and it starts being attack the Jews. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that with white people. I see it all the fucking time. Again, the fact that I even had to clarify at the start of this video that you can, in fact, be racist to white people is a symptom of that. I've had full-on discussions at my university with somebody face-to-face that did not believe that you could be racist to white people. And that is exactly how genocide starts, with the dehumanization of a group of people. By the time Jewish people were getting locked up in camps, there was a lot of propaganda that made them less than human. And a lot of people went along with it because they went along with the exact same kind of not nationalization, radicalization that we are seeing today. Because a lot of times these more radical and insane and detrimental and even fascistic or authoritarian regimes come about through the promise of progress and through gradual ramping up of their doctrine. So you start off saying, oh, we need to attack the rich people, right? And everyone's like, okay, yeah, sure, like we can take from the rich, they're wealthy, they're rich. But then as things keep going on, you start to attack, especially when you start to attack an identity. No. Oh shit. Are you guys gonna work now?
Yeah, we're unloading lumber and stuff now.
Okay, so hold on. Well, and the real danger comes when you start attaching identities to those titles. We as X are the oppressed group. They are crushing us under our boot. Them, they are the oppressors. They are the colonizers. They are the privileged. They are crushing us. And they start with that. And then when you believe that, and they keep going through, that type of rhetoric is seen all throughout discourse today. I see it through a ton of political discourse, and I've seen it in literal, active, physical, talking to people discourse. And that dehumanization is what eventually leads to these inhuman actions. Hell, we've even seen it with people justifying, like Antifa and other organizations, the like, BLM, justifying riots and violence against certain groups of people or certain businesses because of their identities. And it's this gradual ramping up of violence and radicalism that will lead to even more authoritarian, fascistic, whatever you want to call it, regimes here in the Western world. I can't say the States because I don't live in there, but you see it around the world. And then there's also things like the ideas that you can't speak on certain issues because of your race. Oh, you are not indigenous, you have no right to speak upon these issues, you don't understand, etc., etc. And while sure, there are certain experiences that are unique to certain races, I do not believe that you should completely shut out any person from having a discussion because maybe they can bring a point of view that you yourself had not considered. Sure, they may never be able to truly understand your point of view as an indigenous person, but you may also be blinded to certain aspects of the situation because of the perspective that you are put in. You are limited to your own perspective, and while sure, we may never be able to fully understand one another, I believe that it's important to remember that. And while sure, we may never truly be able to fully understand one another, I think that everybody has the capacity for critical thought and the capacity to listen to other people, and we can come to a more holistic understanding of ourselves and our history if we talk and encourage discourse as much as possible. And so shutting people out by calling them colonizer, or saying you can't speak on this because of your race, or you do not understand this because of your race, or you simply having an opinion because of your race or where you come from, completely invalidates said opinion, it does not sit right with me. It is that version of racism, frankly, that frustrates me, because it's the most accepted version of racism, right? And again, Germany used the exact same narrative to gain power, and Germany used the exact same narrative to justify the killing of millions of people. It started off as, we are the oppressed group. Do not listen to them. They are the others. They are the oppressors. They are evil. We are the weak, oppressed group that are being crushed by them. And while yes, there is some validity to that, and that is why the Nazis were able to rise to power, is they took advantage of the frustration and the oppression, frankly, of their people. And so yes, when you have experienced oppression as a group, it is terrible, and there is a lot of frustration and anguish within that population. But the way to solve all of that is not to become the oppressors themselves, because that is exactly what happened to the Nazis. They started off as, or at least they presented themselves as, much like Lance presents himself as, the champion of the people. We are here to bring our population power again. We are going to make ourselves strong. We are going to be heard. We are going to push for a better future for our people. And that is, and honestly, that's great. Like, yes, we do want that. We encourage that, and we encourage equality, and I'm obviously not for oppression. However, when you continue to push for that, and you follow through with everything that I've laid out, including physical attacks, the threats of doxing, and the shutting down other people's opinions based off of their race, which are all things that the Nazis did, you go from the oppressed to the oppressor, and you feel justified. Because again, remember, nobody goes around telling themselves they're the bad guy. Every person believes what they are doing is right. Everyone justifies what they're doing, and I don't know if Lance truly believes what he says. I don't know if he's just using this to get clout and followers and make money, because again, I'm sure there's some sort of monetary incentive to keep doing this, and I don't know if he truly believes that he is making a change. But at the end of the day, I think he is doing a massive disservice to racial unity by following these exact same tactics that authoritarian and oppressive organizations, governments, and regimes use to gain power and oppress people. You do not end oppression by continuing the cycle of oppression. You do not stop hate by hating. That is not how things work. You cannot combat racism with more racism. And on top of doing a disservice to racial unity by encouraging people to be divided by race, and before I move on to that other point, to anyone that wants to say, oh, wow, it's pretty extreme for you to say that comparing Lance to the Nazis committed genocide. There is a TikTok where somebody actually asked him, as a white person and as an ally to you, what can I do to help you? And his response was simply, stop having children.
A lot of white allies and accomplices ask, how can they support Black and Indigenous people of color? And sometimes I really don't know what to say, but here's one easy way. Just don't have babies.
Do I need to explain how that is bad? Do I need to explain how that can equate to genocide? Do I need to explain how stupid that is, especially when you're trying to say that you advocate for racial equality? Do I really need to explain it? Because I will. Because I know there are going to be people that are like, oh, well, he was joking. If we assume that that person was genuinely asking him, trying to figure out what they can do to help, at best, he is dismissing them and saying, fuck off, I don't care, I don't want your help, I don't need your help, which again does nothing to benefit racial unity. And at absolute worst, if we take him at face value seriously, he is telling white people to stop having children. That is not only eugenics, but also encouraging of genocide. Does that sound similar to a certain National Socialist Party? But there's another thing that pisses me off about lands. And it is the, they took our land narrative. And I hate that narrative. I hate the Native Americans who go around saying, oh, they took our land, they took our land. No, they won it in a war. And I think crying about the we had our land stolen is a massive disservice to the Native American population. Because the way it's always presented is like the Native Americans were just peacefully minding their own business, tending to the land and living. And then the evil Europeans showed up with their guns and modern technology and just steamrolled the Native American population, when that is not what happened in the slightest. The Native American population were a group of fierce warriors that would fight to the bitter end, not just amongst themselves, because again, the Native American population did have land wars to gain ownership of certain hunting areas and agricultural areas, but they were just a ferocious group of warriors, or at least some of them were. And they were such a force to be reckoned with. The bows and arrows of the Native American people were often more powerful, more accurate, and could travel longer distances than the guns of the Europeans. The Native Americans were such a force to be reckoned with that the Europeans had to resort to biological warfare in order to slow them down. It didn't even stop them. And yes, the smallpox blankets thing is terrible. It's a war crime. It's atrocious, right? But the fact that the fact that the Europeans had to resort to that is a testament to the strength of the Native American population. They were warriors that fought valiantly. And they were this massive force that the Europeans were terrified of. And then people forget that there were a lot of Native American tribes that actually allied with the Europeans in order to gain more territory over their enemies. But so just simply portraying it as they showed up and took our land is not only disingenuous, but it's rewriting history. And it's rewriting history in a terrible way that makes the Native American population seem weak. Yes, the Native American people were oppressed, and yes, trust me, I know about how the Native American population was oppressed. Google Canadian residential schools. Because I've heard a lot of people talk about, when I talk about race and politics, they're like, oh, you're Canadian. You don't know the racial climate of the United States. You don't know what it's like to have your government oppress you. Google Canadian residential schools. The last one closed off of memory, I think, in 1996. That is actual oppression. That is actual genocide and actual attempts to extinguish a culture there. And the last one closed in 1996. Insane. And you wonder why I do not trust my government, or any government for that matter. But if we go back to the actual history side of things, the Native Americans fought valiantly. They were proud warriors, and they were a force to be reckoned with. And you want to reduce them to just, oh, they took our land. We couldn't do anything about it. No, the Native American population fought hard, and they should be proud of their history, proud that they were able to fend off the Europeans for so long. The supposedly more advanced civilization. They were apparently the underdogs. But apparently not. Because not only did they have home field advantage, they knew the terrain way better than the Europeans did, and they knew how to stay alive. Some of the Europeans wouldn't have even survived without the help of the Native American population, but they thrived, and they were able to fight the Europeans for years, decades. But no, let's just reduce all that proud warrior history to, they took our land. That's like completely ignoring the valiant effort and the fight made, only in favor of calling them losers. We were the losers. And that doesn't sit right with me. I think we should acknowledge all of history. And that includes the oppression of the natives. That includes, yes, the fact that they lost and got their land taken, but it also includes the valiant and hard-fought wars that the Native Americans were able to put up against the Europeans. That is really all I have to say, at least for now. If I have anything more, I'll probably turn the camera back on and say it. But before anyone in the comments who happens to stumble across this video tries to call me a colonizer, my ethnic background is Irish, Ukrainian, and Filipino. Go follow me on Instagram. I'll link the post where some stupid racist idiot goes into my DMs, calls me a colonizer, and then I spend 4 minutes ripping her a new one, talking about the history of my people. Right? But, to people who don't care about, you know, the history of those three populations and say, oh, well, it's fine because you're white passing. I've heard that before. You're white passing. You don't understand what it's like. Well, first of all, that's extremely racist because I'm mixed. And to say, oh, you're white passing, you can pass as white, to me, at least, is racist. But I'm also not quite as pale as I look on camera here. It is mainly due to the settings that I have my ring light on. If I do this, whoa, look, suddenly I'm a lot more tan, aren't I? See? Anyway, that's all I have to say for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Lance, I have no idea if you're going to respond to this. Probably not. I'm too small, but, I have no respect for you. I think you are doing more of a disservice to racial unity than anything. And you have this massive platform of over 3 million followers. And instead of preaching unity, you preach hate. I'm not pretending that I'm the nicest guy around. I'm not pretending I'm the paragon of moral virtue. But, you seem to, portray yourself as something akin to, a good person. And I really don't think you are. Especially with how you've attempted to dox and defended the doxing and gone after a 16-year-old kid on TikTok that completely, frankly, nailed you to the wall with all your racist rhetoric.
Hello, beautiful people. I would like to take a moment to address something. You see, in one of my most recent posts, I said something that could be perceived as me encouraging anti-Semitic rhetoric to continue. And I was floored to find out that is actually what had happened. You see, that was truly not a reaction that I was anticipating, and it was a complete misjudgment on my part. And for that, I'm truly sorry. And because I want to make this right, I would like to invite the Holocaust survivor, Gidon, onto my platform where they can share their experiences and I can learn to be a better ally to the Jewish community. Thank you for those who called me in. Safe travels and happy holidays.
So this is really good right here.
This child stepped up to me as if he were an adult, and I treated him like one. It was not until he ran away with his tail between his legs did you all infantilize him.
Hey Lance, I just wanted to ask you why you think that I ran away with my tail between my legs. I apologize for giving you the impression that I ran away from our discourse. One of your conspirators thought that you needed assistance and thought it would be a good idea to level false allegations and defame my name on TikTok. And that has caused a whole lot of trouble and threatened my safety. She created her own narrative and lied about having evidence. If you want to see my receipts, they're on my Instagram story, on my highlights. It's under receipts. Lance, you reposted her false allegations. And while they are unproven, the video is still up. Behave like the adult you claim to be. Anyways, the ball's in your court.
Now, this comment is in reference to Max. Like I had mentioned, holding someone accountable is not harassment. Now this is harassment.
Hey, Colonized. I have your phone number, your address, and a full list of your family's names and numbers. Quit being a fucking retard, or else.
Now, I know it's not you, and I'm not insinuating that it is, but that's harassment.
And, You're no warrior. You're a fucking coward.